So, of course, there was another one. Another mass shooting. Another one where we have to go over, why is this happening? Why does this keep happening? You know, what's the blame? Is it the right? Is it the left? Is it pro-guns? Is it anti-guns? Is it mental health? Is it just the system? Is it, is it buck stops? Is it automatic, semi-automatic rifles, assault rifles? What is it? Why is it that we have this somewhat unique problem in the United States? My question is this subject constantly being used to deviate our attention away from something I think that's a little bit more pressing? Stay with me here. So, if you guys didn't know, I'm going to be showing you guys what happened in Texas. So, this is going to be deep, but let's get into it. So the gentleman basically in the center of the screen you see here, that's the shooter, and he immediately gets out of the car and starts firing right outside the H&M as soon as he gets out of the car. By the way, viewer discretion advised for this story. If you're easily triggered by things like this, then you may want to come back in about 45 minutes to an hour or so before I get to the next story. Just letting you guys know. Sorry about that. I should have told you guys that right beforehand. My apologies. By the way, in his initial shooting, one of the victims was a 5-year-old.
Mom and I were in Johnson & Murphy shopping, and out of nowhere heard about like 10 pops go off. And I look at the customer next to me, I was like, was that gunshots? And he's like, no, it's probably just construction or something. And then like heard 10, 15 more shots go off. And so I ran to the front of the store and we're like, no, that's shooting. And we see the guy, there's this guy dressed in all black, wearing a vest, has an assault rifle, and he's just shooting at people.
The cops are coming already, and I tried to call 911 and the line was busy. How the does that happen?
At 3:36, our officer was at Alton Premium Outlets on an unrelated call. He heard gunshots, located the gunshot, located the shooter, neutralized the shooter, neutralized the threat. We believe at this point that the shooter acted alone.
Nobody would be involved and watch something like that happen. It's messed up. My mom's pretty torn up. I know I'm going to have some thinking to do after this, but pretty messed up.
Over 200 mass shootings in this year so far. And you know, it's interesting. People who do not live in the United States, people abroad, look at this country and they go, what in the hell is up with y'all? There's a variety of different answers that we can go to regarding what is really going on between a lot of us now and in this country. And I can go at it from my perspective of what I think. But thing is that this is happening in the richest country in the history of the world. And this is coming out of the country that has the most incarcerated people. We are 5% of the world's population, but we have 25% of all incarcerated people in the world in the United States. The guns per capita are millions and millions. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 times more guns in the United States than there are people. And so one would think that, oh, well, everybody should be safe. The police presence in the United States is astronomical. Yeah, people keep dying. People keep getting killed. And it's not just by the hands of some crazed maniac. It's also by people with badges. But I'll get to that in a second.
This is an ongoing, active investigation. We've had tremendous local, county, and state and federal support, and we appreciate that.
So this happened yesterday. So imagine going to the mall with your family and you're just chilling outside of H&M, and next thing you know, some guy comes out in full body armor and all black with an assault rifle, and he points his gun at you and he starts shooting you and your family. And a lot of people are like, well, why is this happening here? Canada has a ton of guns too. Why isn't it happening there? There's a lot of reasons as to why things like this happen constantly, day in and day out. And there's a lot of ways in which we could talk about this. We could go the route of, we just need more police. We need more people with guns. A good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun. We can go the neoliberal route. We need, more gun restriction, gun reform, more background checks. We can go those different routes, right? But there's always something that people don't talk about, especially from those two camps. And you guys know where I'm going with this, right? They always talk about treating the symptoms, but never curing the underlying cause. You see, when you cure the underlying cause, then that means that there are certain things that go away. If you cure the underlying cause, then the amount of people that are having an influx of purchasing firearms to protect themselves won't go up anymore if you cure the underlying cause. You cure the underlying cause, then you won't have the GOP on one side saying, oh, they're going to try to take your guns away, so give us more money And then you're not going to have the other side of the Democrats going, oh, they're trying to keep, guns in the hands of crazy people, so give us more money in our Act Blue. If you cure the underlying cause, you kind of ruin their gravy train. If you cure the underlying cause, then you really don't have to live in as much fear, which means that there's not something that they can play off of. There are companies that are making bank off of your fears. You know who else is making bank off of your fears too? Police. Because you constantly feel like you need their protection. Despite most of the time them always arriving after the fact. So that's what happened. And let me see here. I think I had another video that I need to show. Yes. So there are some arguments that are being made right now as to what some are saying. It's as to what some are saying about mass shootings. And I'm going to be kind of challenging some of the things that this person says. And I'm not going to go the liberal route, because the liberal route also just treats the symptoms of an underlying cause. So let's go.
For many of us, including Dallas retired police officer Trey Penny, who joins us now. Trey, great to see you this morning. As you see the news, you hear the latest, as do we. What do you make of this incident in Allen?
Well, I'm extremely heartbroken by what happened in Allen, Texas. But more on a personal note, I had a friend. I received a call about 3:35 yesterday from him, frantic. I mean, the police officer in another city, and he's calling me about his daughter that's at the Allen Mall at the Presley shop, and they barricaded themselves along with 10 other people inside of a storage closet because and he can hear the gunshots in the background, and he's frantic, trying to figure out what's going on. I'm grabbing my gun, trying to shoot to the other side of town so we can get there. And look, it was horrifying. It was horrifying for all of us. And look, the bottom line is we cannot continue to allow this to happen. This is hitting home. There's no way we should be constantly worried about these shooters being able to attack us while we're out shopping. And
it's kind of interesting when it always becomes a problem when it hits home. But when it happens to other people, there's always a different answer for why we need certain things. But now when it happens to your own, that's when it's like, oh, well, we got to change this. And it's like, well, what have we been telling you for the outset since, it started, going in an uptick. What is it, 99? So we got 24 years we've been dealing with this. Just a thought.
And being with our families, that is not going to cut it. Look, I know we've given a lot of credence to our Second Amendment laws. I'm a Second Amendment pro-gun right guy, but I will tell you, we cannot allow criminals to be running around here with guns, with body armor, and not who they are, know who they are.
Yeah, and some of those criminals, they run around with body armor, and these guns, and then they wave that badge at you. Jeez Louise. Man, we should really take care of those guys, shouldn't we?
Look, we had officers that responded. I talked to a couple of officers. I mean, look, I don't know people that have not, police officers that have not worked a scene involving kids. It's one of the most tragic scenes to ever work that anyone could ever see. You don't lose that. So these officers.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, got to think about those officers that killed Tamir Rice. Man, imagine what they saw. Got to be hard, right?
Are going to be dealing with mental health issues for the foreseeable future when dealing with dead babies. And that can't happen anymore. I think it's time that we start looking at mental health laws, start looking at, gun protection laws. We got to do we
need to start now with mental health laws. I thought, that should have been something that we've been doing for a long time, but for some reason we need to start looking at. This is a former police officer, by the way.
We got to do make sure that the right people have the guns.
Trey, so far police aren't saying much about the shooter. They're saying he's not from that area, which could mean a lot of different things. Do you have any sense? And to your point, I mean, when you talk about this is the thin line on it. You're a supporter of the Second Amendment. Now you're willing to look at different measures. What do you mean by that? Because mental illness is a real problem, but we don't know anything about the mental state of this shooter and whether or not they would have passed a background check as well.
Absolutely. So
maybe I'm missing something, but aren't most people who have mental health issues the victims of gun violence? Aren't they mostly the victims? And the ones that are trying to stay away from people in order to not hurt them. And yes, Joe Johnson, who are the right people? Who do we deem as the right people? So many discrepancies here.
So look, and that's the fine line. You're hitting it right on the nose. Background checks. We're going to have to. Look, I'm a police officer. I love my guns, but I don't want a person that's mentally ill running around on side of me with his gun. He starts shooting. I don't know that he's critically that he's unstable at that time. He got the potential to take out me and my whole family. No way.
Speaking of people who are unstable, wasn't it a statistic that was shown that over 40% of police officers admitted to domestic violence against their spouse or loved one? If we're going to talk about stability, see, here's the thing. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. We talk about these mass shooters, and yet some of the most prolific, some of the most famous, some of the most, infamous shooters that we have walk around with a uniform on and a badge. And nobody's talking about that. Is mass shooting a problem? Yes. But what about mass shooters that are riding around in squad cars every single day? Might I remind you about the George Floyd protests? When there'll be people that'll be standing there peacefully and police officers would shove them and their head hits the ground pavement It happened to an elderly man. Next thing you know, blood started coming out of his ear. But that's okay, because that's just law enforcement doing their job. And look, let's continue.
We got to know who these people are. I've long argued for looking at behavior, right? We want to mitigate these risks. We need to have, and you know what? We're going to find out once the FBI gets into his online data and they find out what his pre-attack behaviors were. We're going to find out whether this person announced his intention. And another part of that is when these attackers, they announce their intentions, they typically tell you what their motivations are, what their grievances are, and what they're going to.
But don't police do the same thing? No, I mean, there actually been reports about police actually talking about wanting to start a race war in the United States. So, I mean, aren't you going to keep that same energy for some of the people who you protect through the thin blue line? Come on. Like, let's be real here, right? Are we going to continuously protect them? Fact. Just because a homegrown terrorist has a gun and a badge does not legitimize the murders that they do to people in this country. Let's continue.
To do. The problem with them posting this information online and through social media is that these companies have no mandate to communicate with law enforcement. So we need policies. The last 2 years, I've been testifying before the U.S. House Judiciary, testifying before the Senate Judiciary, trying to get them to do something to prevent these type of shooting attacks from happening. But nobody has moved. Nobody has done anything. And that's why I'm going to be doing everything I can to protect this country from the inside. I'm going to be running for Congress to make sure that we are protecting our police.
Oh, so that's why you're talking right now. That's what it is. Oh, I see. You're actually using this tragedy as your springboard to say, I'm running for Congress on these issues. Oh, I get it now. It makes sense, doesn't it? And then on top of it, you actually want the government to have more oversight, which I thought these people were against government overreach into our social media, which if you guys actually have been paying attention to the Twitter files, they've actually been doing some overreach into our social media so far. So now they're saying, well, you know what? We need to have more oversight, more censorship into our social media in order to stop these people, when in reality, like I said, it is treating the symptom, not the cause. And so it's like, well, we just want to put these people in check on their social media. So then guess what happens to you on social media? Yeah, you're going to have a lot more government overreach and oversight on your social media. Does anybody see a problem with this? I see a slippery slope with this. Remember the Restrict Act that me and Sabby talked about a few weeks ago? Yeah, keep that in mind.
And we are protecting our community.
You know, Trey, I totally agree. I think everything needs to be on the table. And we as citizens...
She does. She thinks that everything needs to be on the table. Interesting. All right.
And we as citizens deserve to know what are the motivations and the factors involved in mass shootings. For example,
could it possibly be poverty? Could it possibly be, lack of education? Could it possibly be people are constantly being vilified in the media, and so therefore people feel the need to actually take out their own vigilante justice against the roaring masses that they see as a problem, when in reality, the real problem is the people at the top. Oh, but what do I know?
example, there's a manifesto that the public hasn't seen yet from a mass shooting against Christian children and adults at a Christian school in Tennessee. And for some reason, that still hasn't been released. I think we ought to look at the issue of fatherlessness. We also
Let's look at the issue of fatherlessness, shall we? Okay, all right. Now, people were like, oh, well, it's not because they have a dad in the home. Funny enough, a lot of the people who are mass shooters actually have their dads in their life. And it's like, what about them, right? Or you want to talk about fatherlessness? Let's talk about the Black community, right? People are like, oh, there's not enough fathers in the home. Yet, most of the men in the Black community, especially growing up in the 70s and 80s, they were actually put into prison and constantly being taken away by police, ACAB, because for various different, innocuous reasons, or even if it was drugs, it was probably because the war on drugs was made so that people who are self-medicating because of the disease of despair they were actually using, or maybe they had to sell because they just were living in poverty, then guess what? They got put in prison for many, 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 many years. So therefore, guess what? Our fathers were actually taken away by the carceral state. The same people that you guys want to keep funding and keep upholding. So guess what? You guys want to talk about, oh, well, it's not because we don't have enough fathers. Then guess what? It's because of you guys actually taking our fathers away. So wouldn't this be chickens coming home to roost? Anyone? If it really is the fatherlessness issue, would it be chickens coming home to roost? Because y'all took our fathers away. Or you sent them abroad to fight in these wars for the profits for the military industrial complex. You sent them abroad for these wars to fight for, U.S. hegemony and full spectrum dominance, which wasn't really for protecting our freedoms. It was really for protecting the profits of these multinationals. So then our fathers died abroad. Our fathers are dying in prisons, and they're dying, and they're constantly being taken away and then used as slave labor in these prisons. If you want to talk about fathers, let's talk about fathers. Or then they're constantly being shot dead because of police. Let's talk about fathers. Come on, lady. Give me a break. Oop.
We ought to look at the issue of fatherlessness. We also ought to look at weed. We know that cannabis increases psychoses by 5.
I'm sorry, I know it's a serious subject, but look, she had to slip that in there. Oh, we need to talk about weed. Weed is the problem. Look, let me ask you something. Who's quicker to pick up a gun if they're angry? Somebody who's drunk or somebody who's high off of weed? Who's more likely? A person who's high off of weed will probably laugh at you. The only thing that will be shot down is your ego. Somebody consumes too much alcohol now. Now that's a whole different story. So what does this have to do with gun deaths? Like weed, gun deaths? I don't see a correlation there. Now, if you want to go weed and sleep, or weed and eating, or weed and laughter, then yeah, of course. But is she serious right now? Let's carry on.
times. So I think everything should be on the table, including what you say, maybe improving background checks. But thank God there was a guy with a gun there to take this guy down.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, thank goodness there was a guy with a gun there, even though most of the time when mass shooters happen, the cops actually come after the fact instead of actually preventing the crime from happening in the first place. Oh, isn't that lovely? There was only 8 people that were killed. Only 8. Look, we got to treat the symptom. How do you treat a virus? You give the person some tissue, to blow their nose. You give them some cough drops, right? You give them some Vicks Vapor Rub. That helps. Instead of giving them the antiviral. Dear God.
Look, this is the other side of the defund the police movement. When you have police are able to respond, they're able to meet that aggression of the suspect that's at the scene. So we have to have more police. We have to get more people, more police officers funded, and we have to make sure that we are protecting these officers while we're funding, while we're trying to get them to come on to these departments. We can't have officers worried about facing criminal liability charges for use of force. We got to move away from that. And
even though they're killing us more than mass shooters are killing other people. Let me show y'all something. Let me show you something. Yo, let's real talk. Because he's like, oh, well, we gotta have these officers to protect people. Blah, 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 blah. We need these officers to protect people. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right. Fine. Let's go. Cops killed nearly 13 times more people than mass shooters. I'm sorry. What was that you were saying? Bro, what were you saying about protecting police? I'm sorry, but maybe, just maybe, the police are actually more dangerous than mass shooters. Oh, snap. This is something that people aren't really thinking about, huh? Look. Let's get into this, y'all. Because people aren't really talking about this. Right? It says mass shootings in the U.S. have claimed the lives of 339 people since 2015. This was taken back in 2020, which, while certainly egregious, is a mere drop in the bucket compared to the 4,355 citizens killed by police during the same time frame, according to the freethoughtproject.com. There's no question that some of these people were armed and dangerous, but way too many were innocent and unarmed, such as Daniel Shaver, the father of 3 who was killed in 2016 by Philip Brailsford, who was charged with murder but eventually acquitted. In fact, he was allowed to retire from the Mesa, Arizona police force with an accidental disability pension and medical retirement. Meanwhile, if we compare the 399 citizens killed by police in the same time frame, the comparison is off the charts. We're talking about a 1,280% difference. According to the Washington Post, 1,004 individuals were shot and killed by police in 2009, or 12 more than the previous year. In the U.S., the overall homicide rate is 4.9 per 1,000 among citizens. Thanks to the independent watchdog groups that decide to document the number on their own, we have a total number of citizens killed by police. Given that America has roughly 765,000 sworn police officers, that means the police against citizen kill rate is more than 145 per 1,000. This is reported at the same time when violent crime has fallen sharply over the past quarter century, according to PewResearch.org. Using the FBI numbers, violent crime rate fell 49% between 1993 and 2007. However, the police kill rate, the Free Thought Project reports, is nearly 30 times that of the average citizen, yet somehow police still call for disarming citizens and say nothing about the police. So what is it, right? What is it? This guy's like, oh, well, we need to fund the police more. Even though they only solve 2% of crime. Two. That means 98% of all crimes are not solved by them. It's easy math. And it just so happened that a cop was on the premises. What about what happened at Uvalde, Texas? Same state, different city. What happened with them? Or we can go to Florida, where there literally was a cop on the premises at a school, and the cop ran the other way. He ran. So is it really the cops that actually prevent this? Because guess what? The right's going to cling to this and say, see, a good guy with a gun is actually there. One of the rare times. And then liberals will go, see, this is why we need to fund police more. Instead of putting guns in the hands of teachers and people like that. When in reality, both sides are constantly going past the underlying issues. Constantly going past the underlying issues. This is a great website for you guys called mappingpoliceviolence.org. So in 2022, police killed 1,237 people in the U.S. It says black people are 2.9 times more likely to be killed by police than white people in the U.S. If there was a group of people that were killing 1,237 people in the United States per year, I would say that we need to nip this in the bud and basically, get rid of the people who were killing all these people in the United States. We need to make sure that, we are safe from these people. And by get rid of, I mean, not have them in their occupations anymore. If an occupation killed 1,237 people in the United States every single year, I'd be like, well, it looks like we need to change that occupation. We need to get those people out of that occupation. We need to change the entire system. And yet, people look at it and go, it's fine. This is fine. So I'm going to share this mappingpoliceviolence.org link in the chat so you guys can have this as a resource as well. All right, so there's just, it's a lot, man. Let me finish what this guy said. Gosh. You know how some people, they just have some really shitty takes and then, you don't even want to finish it, but let me finish it.
Artists for use of force. We got to move away from that. And you saw right after the George Floyd riots, where a lot of police officers here in Dallas, here in Austin, Texas, a lot of police officers start getting indicted for use of force.
Good. Because if they're using force against people, especially unarmed people who are not a threat, then they should be. That means they're being, look, what in the hell is the problem with holding them accountable? Why is that such an issue? Why is holding people accountable for the things that they do wrong? Why is that an issue? Don't you want people to be held accountable? Oh, that's right. That thin blue line, that wall. This is equivalent to somebody committing domestic violence against somebody's loved one. And so then you see that domestic violence, but you don't want that person to get in trouble. So you keep a lid on it. We don't talk about that. And then when the person who is the loved one that's being violated against by the person committing the domestic violence, once they wind up dead, then you go, oh, I'm so sorry. I wish I should have. I wish I could have, but then you didn't. And you continuously let this happen. And they died. Why were people out in the streets during the George Floyd protests? Because George Floyd was murdered. You don't think that we should not hold murderers accountable? You, a police officer? You don't think that we should hold murderers accountable? Just because they got a badge and a gun? That gives them carte blanche to do whatever the fuck they think they can do to us? I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but that guy sounds like a terrorist sympathizer. That sounds like sympathizing with terrorists.
We can't have that. We cannot have that because you're not going to have police wanting to come into this profession.
That means that they're going to be more careful. I'm going to take it even further. We need to rethink policing and public safety overall. Abolish the motherfuckers.
Trey Penny, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you,
Trey.
No, thank you, Trey. Should I show it again? Should I show it again? Like, real talk. Let me show it again. What was it? 13 times more people than mass shooters? 2020 was not that long ago. 13 times more mass shooters. More people than mass shooters. Wouldn't you say that's an epidemic in our country? Wouldn't you say? I would. Look, I'll put it to you this way. If you are getting up in arms about the mass shooters that constantly happen in this country, and you're like, oh my God, this is horrible. And yet you're not balking at the fact that police have killed 13 times more than mass shooters. If you're not balking at this, what the hell is wrong with you? And people are like, oh, well, the problem is the guns. Well, you know what? I say the problem is the system. The problem is the system. Because people are like, oh, well, we need to invest more in mental health. But whenever we were talking about Medicare for all, single-payer healthcare, or wherever we talk about nationalization of our healthcare system, people go, oh, we can't do that, even though that would help. When we talk about actually having a housing first model, giving housing to people because housing is actually a right, people go, oh, we can't do that, but it would help. We talk about defunding the police on a road to abolition so that we can rethink policing and actually have a more peaceful, more just public safety system so that people aren't constantly killed because of their gun violence. But people go, oh, no, we can't do that, even though it would help. Every single time we give an answer to why or how we can do things better, it's like, oh, no, we can't do that. I come to you. You have rhinovirus, which is basically the, let's not say rhinovirus. Let's say you have a virus and it, results in you having runny nose, stuffed up, coughing, watery eyes, stuff like that. Okay, whatever. So you say you have that. Say you have that virus. And I come to you and I go, hey, I have the antivirus right here in order to cure you, to get rid of the runny nose, stuffed up, watery eyes, chest congestion. It can get rid of all that. Just inoculate you, boom, you got it, and give you a couple days, it's over. But then you go, no, I'm going to give some NyQuil, and I'm going to have some Vicks Vapor Rub on my chest, and then I'm going to blow my nose. I even have a nasal rinse that I can use, right? I'll take some cough drops, but you keep rejecting the antivirus, the antiviral medicine. Of course, the watery eyes, the runny nose, the congestion, the coughing, the sneezing, all of that stuff's going to still continue. You're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. No pun intended at all. But that's what you're doing. And you're constantly saying, we just need to do these little mini steps. And if police aren't actually solving crime or really truly preventing the crime that they say they're supposed to, then what good is it going to do against mass shooters? The police aren't going to protect you from mass shooters. They are going to be the mass shooters. That's something that a lot of people aren't thinking about. It comes with building up and changing the system from the ground up. Because a lot of people are constantly being vilified in some of these mass shooters' minds. Some of these mass shooters are just racially motivated. And why? Because they're constantly being vilified. They're constantly being told, oh, it's the black people that are the problem. It's trans people that are the problem. It's immigrants that are the problem. It's women that are the problem. Right? It's Muslims that are the problem. It's Jews that are the problem. They're constantly being told, oh, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. So guess what? People will take it upon themselves and exact vigilante justice on behalf of what they feel is protecting, I don't know, the Christian nation or whatever it is. And so they're constantly being told that. When in reality, the real problem are the corporate dictators. The real problem are the people who are telling you that these people who have no power are the problem. And so you have these people that go out and carry out this vigilante justice that they feel somehow they are ordained to do. And so then people die because they're constantly being vilified. And who does that? Fascists. They're constantly vilifying. And the liberals and Democrats, they're no help either, because they'll be the same ones that will say, oh, we just need to increase police, even though what the police do. they're doing 13 times more damage than that of the mass shooters. This is why we say that both parties are not there for us, even when it comes to the lives of us and our children. This is why it is important for us, number one, to do what we can by changing the system one conversation at a time. Also, I'll put it to you this way. When common sense gun reform happens, it will happen because Black people have armed up to protect ourselves. Don't believe me? It happened before. California, Governor Reagan against the Black Panther Party. And who's going to be the ones to take your guns away when you're actually legitimately trying to protect yourself? Want to be police? And then they'll be the only ones with the guns. But as we know, they're not the good guys. In order to really change this, in order to really improve the lives of people so that they don't die, you have to change the system from the bottom up, which means you have to get rid of the people that are causing this system to decay in the way that it is. And that is no more corporate dictators. So, yeah. Let's go to the chat. I'm starting with Rockfan really quick. You see here. Start off in the rock. All right. What you talking about? All right. So I hate when this happens. All right. Let's share screen. Hempcar says law saying can shoot police breaking the law. What are you talking about? Hang on. Let's see. What you talking about? I've never seen this before, so I have no idea what this is going to be saying. So.
Citizens allowed to shoot police officers who trespass illegally.
Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Anna Napolitano is here to break down the new rule. All right, this is going to take place in Indiana.
It is.
What is it?
Well, it's a law that allows people who lawfully own weapons to use those weapons against the police when the police are behaving illegally. For example, police attempting to arrest someone without an arrest warrant, police entering property without a search warrant, police coming into the wrong property, or police actually committing a crime. Now, this was generated by a horrific case in Indiana where the police broke down the wrong door and arrested the wrong person, and he kept trying to say to me, I'm not the guy you want, it's next door. And the more he resisted, the more they pummeled him.
That sounds like the Texas law.
Texas also has a statute that if, for example, they're after Brian Kilmeade, but they arrest Steve Doocy.
Is the first law of its kind. Citizens allowed to shoot police officers who trespass illegally.
Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano is here to break down the new rule. All right, this is going to
Thanks, Himcar, for that link. I'm gonna have to look that up.